This episode of HWY.com is brought to you by Mr. D's Furniture in Scottsboro, Alabama. They are family owned and operated since 1939. Their 4 buildings and 3 stories carry everything from Serta mattresses, recliners, bedroom, living room furniture, and even tables and chairs. And folks, they haven't paid a mortgage since the Nixon administration. And they pass that savings on to you. So stop by and see them just off the square in Scottsboro, or check them out on Facebook. What is going on, folks? I am Bobby D, and you are listening to or watching the HWY.com. Now, most of you probably already noticed there's no written out review on this post. There's just the video and a couple details and pictures. That's because I figured it's about time for a change. And that's not saying I didn't enjoy writing out those reviews, but I'd always envisioned this as more of a video-themed website rather than just straight up poor man's urban spoon. You read the review and there it is. Now I'm going to start shooting some better video now, and I'm going to start putting that up. Make it a little bit more interesting for those of you with ADD, much like myself. And I know there's been more than one of you that come up to me and say, hey, I'd like to do what? And to see all the different places you go to eat and hang out. But I get tired of having to read all those words. Well, this is for you and pretty much the rest of America that has the attention span of a gnat. Now, this first video review I'm going to put out here is about the popular Flint River drop-off points of Ryland Pike, 72, and, of course, the popular Flint River pick-off point of Little Cove Road, which pretty much anybody that's ever paddled to Flint around here has ended their trip at that location on at least one occasion. Okay, let's start off our journey with the Ryland Pike drop-off point, which is actually off of Everett Road where you're going to park and put in. And the first thing you'll see when you pull up is this ramp. Now the ramp is very tempting. You're going to want to, start at the top and ride down like some kind of carnival ride. Don't do that. Tell you right now, that ramp is slippery as all get out. The first time we tried that route out, we actually had a girl fall. I thought she hurt herself at first, but she stood right up. She's tough. So I took it a little gingerly when I went down it, and it's pretty slippery at the bottom, like I said. But I would recommend walking your boat down toward the bottom of the ramp and putting in if you had to. But as far as that ramp goes, I wouldn't do it unless you absolutely wanted to use the little ramp. On the other side, there's actually the steps that lead down to a little open area in the bank, and it's got some roots you can hang on to. I'm a little leery of the snakes in the summertime, but it's been cool the past few times we went. I haven't seen a snake, so just watch yourself when you're around those roots and things, and there shouldn't be too many hanging around, but don't take my word for it. Always check your footing before you go down there. But I do recommend this little cut-in of the bank opposed to the ramp. I'll tell you one thing, once you put in there either off the ramp or off from the steps, you better be on your paddle and paddle pretty hard because you're in the current. It don't put off into an eddy or anything. I mean, you're in the straight up Flint River once you put out there, but that's with most routes. So just use caution, get in the paddle when you come off, and you'll be all right. But I think one concern when it comes to putting in a place like this is the parking. And it's just off of a small little, it's a little paved road, about half dirt, half paved. And it's pretty safe. We've parked there several times and never had any trouble. There's always a lot of other people with boats and canoes and stuff parking there, so I don't think you're going to get your window busted out or anything, but if you do, don't come beating down my door saying, Bobby D, you said that I wasn't going to get broke into and somebody stole my stereo. I didn't say that. I said it's pretty safe. So just lock it up and hide your valuables. Like I can take my stereo face off, put it on my truck seat, and always carry any kind of wallets with me in my dry box, so just use common sense when it comes to what you're going to leave in your truck and take with you. Now, the actual route from Ryland to 72 is what I would consider to be the bunny hill of the Flint River. If you've never kayaked before, if you've never been on the Flint River before, it's one of the most perfect spots to go. It takes about an hour and a half We've done it in 2 hours and we stopped messing around, you know, took a break. But it's mostly just about 90 minutes is what you're going to get out of it, depending on how fast you go. Now, the water itself between here and there is relatively smooth. There are 4 what I would call rapids, quote-unquote rapids. And I only call them rapids because it's the best word to describe them. It's just small spots of white water, maybe a class 1 at one point. But there's about 4 of them. 3 of them are pretty small. You just notice you notice a dip in the water gets a little faster. One's got a little hole in it. And the other one that's kind of good size is under the Brownsboro Bridge on up the river. It's got a nice little wave train. But other than that, it's just pretty much smooth. Just a lot of slow, flat water to paddle. And there's also some interesting stuff to see on the Ryland route. There's an old bridge, which is pretty much just the pillars that held up the old bridge. There's the railroad bridge that you'll see, and it's still active. There's still trains that go across. Now these 2 things, I mean, it's not too big of a deal, but when I pass by them, I can only think that if I ever get a chance to shoot a horror movie, to be a director on a horror movie, we would do some scenes at this old bridge, those big stone pillars. You'll see the video of it. It's just kind of creepy when you pass by it on a kayak like that, especially on a dreary day like we did. And the railroad bridge, that just has this crazy Mothman Walking Dead feel to it. You know, it's just like it's there, but it kind of looks abandoned because it's only just 1 or 2 times a day anything's ever on it. And it gives you kind of a creepy feeling when you float under it and look up and you can kind of see through it because of the ties. I spent a little bit extra time shooting us going under it, and as I was going under it, just because of how interesting it looked. But that is just about all there is to see on the Ryland Pike to 72 route. And when you get close to 72, you'll notice the water does pick up a little bit. It's one of the more fun spots on that route, but once you get to 72 and just a little bit beyond it, it calms down. And that's all I've got on the Ryland route. I hope you guys enjoy, and leave me some comments on it. Next up will be the 72 drop-off to Little Cove Road. Probably one of the most popular ones. The 72 to Little Cove Road route, where you drop off at 72 and you pick up at Little Cove Road, is probably the most popular route along the Flint River, because that's where N.A.C. drops off, and that's the most accessible and visible drop-off and pick-up points from the actual main road. But let me say this about the 72 parking area. I'm a little disappointed in how it's maintained. But there's just something about a poorly maintained road. I mean, it's gotten smoother since last year. But there's something about a poorly maintained road with lots of big mud holes in it that leads to a parking spot underneath the bridge. That just sends a red flag, you know, this place is shady, I kind of don't want to be here. Just use your better judgment when you go park there, you'll be okay. You can park there several times, nothing's ever happened. You'll be fine. Just don't leave your truck overnight, because I can't attest to what kind of sinister types might park under a bridge at night for sanctuary. But I can't imagine there'd be folks you'd want around your new truck. Now, once you paddle off from the 72 parking area in your canoe or kayak, you got about a 3-hour trip ahead of you. Now, I've made this trip into 4 hours. I've made this trip into 2.5, and I've made it into 5 hours. It just depends on how fast you want to go, who you're with. If you want to take a break, if you want to swim around, that's just up to you. But a good rule of thumb is 3 hours. Now, there's a lot more stuff to do along this route than there is the Ryland route. There's several little rope swings, which I would say swing at your own risk, but they are kind of enjoyable. I know there was one toward the middle that we spent a good hour or so on last year. I think it got tore down just from the weather this winter, tore the tree down. But it had a good little hole underneath the swing. We spent a lot of time there. We had lunch and took a lot of pictures and hung out and rested. But the actual water itself on this route is a little bit rougher than I would say the Ryland route is. There's several more that I would call rapids along the way, and there's several spots that if you maneuver wrong, you could possibly end up underwater. One of which being a random dead tree that I cannot remember from last year. It was the first trip of the year, and it's the first time I ever flipped my kayak. And it was fun, you know, little adrenaline rush. I could stand up and touch bottom like I was in real danger. It took me about 15 minutes, and I was back out again. But just watch yourself on stuff like that. You'll get hung, turned sideways in a second out there with all that some of that junk that's in the water, like the dead trees. And if you do indeed turn your boat over and you're okay and you're not in the hospital, feel free to send me your pictures and stuff. I'll put them up here and let everybody laugh at you. It's always fun to see people's misfortune for some daggum reason. Everybody thought mine was funny. I've also seen a couple people, get a little cocky out there and grab a hold of something while they're going through a rapid and end up losing their sunglasses and end up in a bad mood the whole day. You know who you are. No sense in naming names. Ain't that right? Now, as you approach the pickup area, the little Cove pickup area, the water does seem to get rougher. I mean, it seems to be more debris, more log jams. I don't know what the deal with that, why that actually is. I don't know if it's just because the river kind of bottlenecks right there and everything gathers up. But I would say be a little more cautious when you get toward the Little Cove Road area and stay to the right at the last little fork in the river. Otherwise, you'll end up in that log jam right there at the end, and you get turned around and you're underwater in a second. So for the love of God, stay right. Otherwise, you'll have to paddle upstream about 50 yards to get back in the main part of the river that's kind of calm. Now, once you get to the pickup area, the Little Cove pickup area, someone has constructed a little ramp and they've driven cedar posts into the ground for you to assist you with getting out. And then for some reason, they always end up scratching up my wrist because I get out wrong and I fall out and everybody laughs. But they are helpful, and the ramp for the slide the kayaks up is helpful in getting up without, slipping and falling back down into the river. And normally I'm not as clumsy as getting out of a kayak and coming up out of the river makes me, but after about 3 hours of my legs being straightened out, I'm not nearly as graceful and coordinated as I was when I first hopped into the river and started paddling. So just be mindful of that. You're not going to be as spry as you were a couple hours prior to getting in your boat. And once you pull up out of the river there at Little Cove, you're good to go unless you go all the way to Hampton Cove. It would be another, 4 or 5 hours. I've never done that way, and I'll probably do a post on it. But that is it for the Ryland Pike 272 episode of TheDoWhat.com. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I look forward to doing many more TV show, podcasty type episodes for you guys instead of writing out giant diatribe of meaningful words about food and the whatnot. And always feel free to recommend places to go, things to try, be it food, event, maybe a different shooting range, a go-kart track. I haven't found a good go-kart track around here. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoy it. Until next time, I'm Bobby D with TheDoWhat.com. Thank you.